Alright, everybody. I'm back with another video, and seeing as spring training is just around the corner, and I have a couple of my favorite baseball teams on the brain, I thought, why not do a series of videos giving my predictions and opinions going into 2020 on them. And one of those teams just so happens to be the Chicago Cubs. Um, So let's get started. Um, Overall, with spring training underway, actually starting tomorrow, in fact, for the as far as the Chicago Cubs go, I believe their first game is tomorrow afternoon. With a new manager on the horizon, David Ross. It's going to be interesting to see how the Cubs do this year now that Joe Madden's with the Angels, the Anaheim Angels or Los Angeles Angels, whatever they're called now. To me, they'll always be the Anaheim Angels. But anyway, David Ross is sifting through how to organize his rotation, his lineup, and his bullpen. And a lot of those things are going to be ironed out over the next couple of weeks. But it's never too early to take a stab at some predictions about how some springtime storylines are going to play out going into the regular season. I'll go into those. Excuse me. I'll go into those predictions momentarily. But as far as the lineup goes, I'm going to do a little brief synopsis here as far as that goes. Not very much has changed for the Cubs lineup since they won the World Series back in 2016. I mean, you still have the likes of Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Kyle Schwarber, and Javier Baez, who are going to be heavy hitters on the roster. But at the same time, you could also include Wilson Contreras to that group, and even Jason Hayward as well. I mean, he put together a solid campaign last year. Look up his stats; the numbers don't lie. But on the other hand, I still feel that there are some questions that need to be answered as far as center field, second base, and the overall depth of the team. At least in regards to a couple people, Steven Souza Jr., Albert Almora Jr., and Ian Happ, because they're going to be battling it out for playing time in the outfield. If I had to go on a guess as far as who gets it out of those three, I predict it goes to Ian Happ. But Albert Almora Jr. struggled offensively last season. Ian Happ spent the vast majority of 2019 in the minors, and Steven Souza Jr. didn't even play at all. And I had literally forgotten that he was even on the roster at the time. At the time, I was doing some reading and note taking for this video, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, Steven Souza Jr., how long has he been on the roster for? And I never even thought about him being on the roster until now. But be that as it may, it's going to be interesting to see how the Cubs do going into 2020. The way I see it as an optimist, and especially when it comes to the Chicago Cubs and also the White Sox, well, I'll get to in my next video. I know it's going to sound like an oxymoron saying, well, as far as both the Cubs and the White Sox, how can you be optimistic as far as looking forward to both teams doing great? You can only choose one or the other. Well, I'm one of those few people who fall into the category of I like them both the same, but if I had to say one over the other. But as far as I'm concerned, they're both from Chicago. I got to see them both win a World Series, and I'm happy with that, especially with the White Sox in 2005. That was the first semester of my sophomore year of high school. I remember when they won it. I was like, okay, the Chicago White Sox won the World Series. Now to finally see the Chicago Cubs win one. and even then everyone's like, Chicago Cubs will never win the World Series. Quit talking like that. And surely enough, they did it 11 years later. If I can see the Cubs and or the White Sox win another World Series, I'll be happy. Anyways, let's get on to some of the predictions. I have my top 5 predictions for this video, but actually it's one of them is an honorable mention, so technically it's a top 6 predictions in no exact order. Prediction number 1, Javier Baez is signed to a 6-year contract extension worth $150 million. Now I know what you guys are thinking. You know, the Chicago Cubs aren't spending any money this winter. What makes you think they're going to spend any money going into 2021? My response is that the contract takes effect in 2021. Javier Baez is signed to a 1-year deal through what's it called, the arbitration process. I don't remember exactly how it works, but something having to do with average annual value of a contract and calculating luxury tax or something like that. I don't remember how exactly it goes. But basically, how it would work is, if I can explain it the best way I can, as I'm going off the top of my head. Javier Baez is signed to a 1-year deal through the arbitration process for 2020. And the AAV, I believe is what they call it, the average annual value of the extension won't be included in the calculation of the luxury tax for 2020. And the Chicago Cubs have quite a bit of money coming off their books after this year, and I think they're going to spend a good chunk of it on keeping Javier Baez in Chicago. Excuse me. So if they do, that would be nice. Prediction number 2: Tyler Chatwood. Tyler Chatwood takes the 5th spot in the rotation. I know this isn't really going out on a limb prediction here, but in my opinion, he's the clear favorite to land the 5th spot in the rotation. The pitching coach, Tommy Hotovy, I believe it is, Hottovy, I believe is how it's pronounced. Tommy Hotovy or Hotovy, I don't remember how exactly you say it, but either way. I remember hearing something or reading something, him basically saying a right-handed pitcher is positioned to get the number 5 spot. And even Tyler Chatwood said, I don't remember where this was, but Tyler Chatwood said something like this was discussed as far back as last season. But on the other hand, keep in mind that Cole Hamels, who recently got released by the Chicago Cubs, ended up going to the Atlanta Braves. So I think a chance to lock down a full-time spot for the first time since 2016 is on the horizon for Tyler Chatwood. I hope. I personally hope that he gets the job. He's more than deserving of it. Speaking of pitching, number 3, John Lester gets the start on opening day. He might no longer be the quote-unquote ace of the Chicago Cubs rotation, but he's still the unquestioned leader, given his experience, his poise, and his leadership abilities. I mean, for 36 years old, John Lester still has plenty in the tank and a lot to offer. I was actually seeing here on the news on, I want to say it was on Fox 32 here in Chicago. John Lester, when he appeared in camp, they showed pictures of the players arriving at camp and videos and so on. And when I saw John Lester, I thought he looks like he looks a little bit leaner and he's lost some weight. But apparently so, and even went to David Ross commenting on it. He said this could help. This could help me implement some things this spring that my coaching staff has in mind. And John Lester started the season opener for the Chicago Cubs in 4 of the last 5 years. 4 of the past 5 years, and including the last 3 in a row. So, if he can get it for a 4th year in a row, I say good for you. But when asked about his thought process about the nod for opening day, David Ross also, I want to say it was at a press conference, he said, I look back on who might have been the starter last year in the playoffs in Game 1, and that's kind of how I move forward. But it's hard to argue against Kyle Hendricks and Yu Darvish now being the top 2 arms in the starting rotation. But if you're looking for the tone setter for the Chicago Cubs, it remains to be John Lester. That's if you don't have John Lester as the number 1, who would you have at number 2? Let me know your thoughts. In my opinion, it would be John Lester, Yu Darvish, Kyle Hendricks, and there's someone else I can't think of his name right now. Anyway, excuse me. I would, at least as far as my top 3, I would definitely have it in exact order: John Lester, Yu Darvish, Kyle Hendricks. Let me know what you guys think. I'm in a rush to get this video out of the way, so I apologize in advance if this video doesn't come out that great. But prediction number 4: Anthony Rizzo gets the nod as a leadoff man. At a charity event prior to the Cubs convention this year, Anthony Rizzo was quoted as saying, "I won't be lobbying to be the Cubs leadoff hitter at the start of the season. However, I'll be all in on whatever it is that David Ross wants to do." So, David Ross has reiterated that I'm still weighing my options and consulting the team's number crunchers. And that Anthony Rizzo is definitely a viable option if I want to go with with a professional at bat to lead things off. And in the case of Anthony Rizzo, you can't. You can make a legit case for Anthony Rizzo. He posted a .410, .500, and .667 slash line in the number 1 last year, in the number 1 spot last year. And he slashed his .335, .426, and .602 batting averages atop the order in his career in 244 plate appearances. Should the Chicago Cubs go this route, it'll probably be related to a belief that Kyle Schwarber is ready to produce as a middle-of-the-order type of guy. And Kyle Schwarber in 2019, his OPS in the second half, I want to say, was a .997 or 998 or something like that. I want to say it was .997. But if in the event that Anthony Rizzo is at the top, then the Cubs need to have faith that the hole created in the meat of the lineup will be filled with steady run production. And I believe it will. Prediction number 5. Craig Kimbrell, the name who I was trying to think of and I completely drew a blank on. Craig Kimbrell has bounced back 2020 and once again is amongst one of the best closers in baseball. The silver lining for the Cubs is that Craig Kimbrell returns to the closer's role after signing with the Cubs last June. But he battled elbow troubles and posted an ERA of 6.55 last year. And while I understand that there's some uncertainty with what the Cubs can expect out of him in 2020, there are also questions about how the Cubs will get the ball to Craig Kimbrell in the 9th inning. So I think if Craig Kimbrell can stay healthy, he'll be able to return to form. I guess is the best way I can word it. If he stays healthy, he doesn't get hurt, and he doesn't come across any more elbow problems, and the future looks bright. Let's see. Prediction number 6. I hate to come up with predicting a team's record when there's 162 games, but coming off a season last year where the Cubs won 84 games, the Cubs have a projected win total of 86.5 games in 2020. So, if you want to play a game of over or under the number of games that the Cubs win in 2020, the over or under is set at 86.5. So, round it up and say 87. Unless David Ross has the magic touch, it's hard to envision the Cubs improving upon last year's win total. At least that's what some of the critics are saying. And the Chicago Cubs didn't really spend much money in the offseason, which leaves them with an uncertain spot in the rotation and a laundry list full of questions for the bullpen and a host of other things. And I could go down that entire list of unanswered questions that still remain to be seen, and that whole video would probably take up about 3 or 4 more hours than what it's already intending to. So I think I'm already going a little over my allotted time here. I'm at about 16 minutes and some seconds. But anyway, long story short, I think the level of competition in the National League Central, it could be, if not higher than what it was last year, maybe a little bit higher. But we won't know until the regular season starts. Some people are saying look for the Cubs to struggle just to maintain a 500 record and fall short of the 86.5 win projection. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think I predict the Chicago Cubs go over the 86.5, and that's 162 minus 88, 74. I think if my math is right. Yeah, I believe it's 74. Anyway, I project the Chicago Cubs. Here was my honorable mention prediction. I predict the Chicago Cubs win 88 games. They go 88-74. And right now, that's really about it. I'm already about 17 and a half minutes in. I've run out of other things I wanted to say, but let me know what you guys think. What do you think the over or under will be for the Chicago Cubs this year? Did you hear a different number from somebody else? Is there a free agent signing that we should keep an eye out for? Is there someone in the minor leagues that we should look out for? How does the starting lineup look? Who do you think will be in the starting lineup if the regular season were to start right now? Let me know what you guys think. Anyway, I will talk to you guys later. Follow me on Instagram. Subscribe to me on YouTube if you haven't already, and I will see you guys when I see you and talk to you when I talk to you. Take it easy.